Okay, hey. I apologize about that. In all of my brain fog of this freaking crazy coronavirus stuff, I wasn't even thinking that we could go two lives at once because I forgot to ask Paige if she had two phones or an iPad or something that we could go live on at the same time. So sorry about that. I'm just explaining about what's going on here.
Yeah, you're good.
So I apologize for that, but we actually did an entire hour over on Be Driven and we still have more to talk about. So our second half of the live is going to be going on here and it'll be saved to our story. The first one is saved to Be Driven and I'll see if I can screenshot all of that as well. Sit there for an hour. I heard you talking about that yesterday. You were like, I think I'll just screenshot this whole thing, listen to myself talk for an hour and put it.
It's the worst.
So anyways, okay.
Yeah.
Right back into it. We were talking about new dates and now we are in scenario number 4 that you have been talking about, which is cancellations.
Yeah.
Documents needed is documents needed to postpone and reschedule, but what needs to be put in place for a full-on cancellation?
Okay, document-wise, in order to actually cancel that original contract, get out of it, and be able to just cut and run from that whole first scenario, you need to have a termination agreement in place that specifies, again, kind of like what we were talking about, not kind of, exactly what we were talking about with the rescheduling agreement,
Right.
that will have mutual release language. Again, that all that is doing is literally mutually releasing both the client and the vendor from that original agreement.
Okay.
And also it's just creating a set end date to that original agreement.
Okay.
One thing we can come back to this later on too, but one thing I'll mention briefly, if you have purchased a termination agreement from the shop here, you will have seen that there's a non-disparagement clause as well. That's something that is standard in every termination agreement, no matter what type of business you have. That's not necessarily, that's going to vary state by state. So if you're a vendor watching this, I highly recommend that you reach out to an attorney in your state to review that, because in some states that might not hold up, but it's common language.
Okay, awesome. So then, force majeure. This has been a hot topic. And can you first talk about force majeure? Can you tell us what it is in layman's terms? And then we'll dive right into that.
Yeah, so how many people watching had not heard of the term force majeure, saw it at the end of their contract, and then all of a sudden started thinking about it just this week? I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek because I have a lot of times when people ask me to draft custom contracts for them, they want it to be short and sweet, and there's the whole conversation around that. But one of the provisions that people ask me to take out all the time is a force majeure provision because they don't see the point of it. And now this week, it's like everybody on Facebook is talking about force majeure. That all being said, this is where a lot of information that you're seeing on Facebook is not accurate right now, because a force majeure clause is not going to save you in this scenario. So a force majeure essentially is, it's usually called like just an act of God clause.
So Amanda, this is the question that you asked.
Yeah.
That we're going to explain here.
Yeah. Lots to say about this. These clauses are extremely, extremely hard to fight and uphold in court. Like extremely hard. They are for the purpose of extreme circumstances. So an example of this, and a lot of the ones that if you have one for me, you've seen language around acts of God, like hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, like what we all know is acts of God. You might have seen language about acts of man. You might have also seen language about acts of hostility, like war, terrorism. I have in some of my contracts even written out like nuclear wars. Like that's how extreme we're talking. So for example, sometimes in American history where a force majeure clause is held up would be around 9/11, where obviously anybody working around that site, like obviously that was an act of hostility that caused legal impossibility of performance of the contract. I don't want to be, I can get really boring with this, and so I'll try to rein myself in. I have some notes written down here about this that I think will help explain this. I won't try to get in the weeds too much, but to help kind of give some context as to why I keep saying this. You need to stop looking at your force majeure clause. You need to start looking at your payment provisions and your cancellation provisions in your contract. So again, looking at it from the perspective of a litigator, anytime we're talking about a force majeure scenario, a court's going to be looking for three things, and these are really, really important. Okay. They're going to be looking to see if the event qualifies as force majeure under the contract. So that means they're going to be reading the specific language of the contract. Or of the provision, the second thing they're going to look for is whether or not that risk of non-performance of the contract was foreseeable and able to be mitigated. I'm going to come back to that. And then the third thing they're going to look for is whether or not that performance was truly impossible. So this is this is boring. Bear with me. I won't make it too long.
No,
so if we're going to point number one about whether or not the event qualifies for force majeure, if you have language in your contract talking about pandemics, you might have a little bit of an argument, but it's not one that you can hang your hat on in terms of completely getting out of the contract.
Can I ask you why the coronavirus pandemic does not qualify as an act of God? What is it technically qualified under?
Most attorneys are, so here's where we're in a really weird gray area as well. A lot of courthouses are closed right now. So that means that we don't have a lot of clarity on a lot of case law because we can't go in front of a judge. My dog might start barking here in a second. Just FYI, the mailman's about to show up.
In the background. I'm sure everyone can hear it. So
just bear with me if that happens. It's inevitable here. Anyways, so this is considered an act of man. This is not a weather-related event. This isn't like, this is not like like a earthquake came and or a sinkhole opened up and swallowed up Spain Ranch, and so Spain Ranch can't hold weddings at the event or at the venue anymore. It's not something that extreme. Again, force majeure provisions are used only in the most extreme of extreme scenarios. Okay, so I'll just leave it at that for now because it can get, that's a big debate right now. So the second part of this is whether or not the risk, this is the whole key to everything I'm talking about. The risk of non-performance was foreseeable and able to be mitigated. We had, if you want me to get real technical, we had noticed this was coming in like January.
December.
Really, I was going to say really December, but most of us really clued in around January. So one, it's foreseeable. If we want to be more specific than that, the CDC put out guidelines. We've been talking about CDC guidelines that have come out, over a week ago now. So this thing was absolutely foreseeable. And therefore, that leads us to the second part of that. Was it able to be mitigated? Did the wedding occur an hour after the CDC guidelines came out? In that scenario, maybe it was not able to be mitigated. Are we talking about weddings happening, for example, in early May? This is foreseeable. This is happening. You're watching this live. This is happening. And two, you have until early May, whenever the wedding may be, to mitigate your non-performance or, work with your client to move the event. Which leads us to point number three, whether or not the performance is truly impossible. No, it's not impossible for you to actually show up and provide your services. They just might be at a later date and time.
Does that make sense? So much sense. Thank you for explaining that. I think a big question, besides the misinformation about the force majeure, was the why does this not qualify as an act of God? That makes so much sense that we have had warning, and then the other points as well. But that I think is a aha moment and should be an aha moment for everyone to see. Okay. Yeah. You don't have a lot of warning if, a hurricane is coming, like it could still take off course or it could pop out of nowhere, that kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And just the last point on that, and this is where like law school just changes your brain forever and ever.
Yeah.
This law is written as, this is written as, these are ands. So these are commas in between each point that I just talked about.
Right.
It's not an and, it's not an or situation, it's an and. So if you want to ever win a force majeure scenario case, it has to qualify under the contract and, and the second part and the third part. So anyways, it's even if it were an act of God, you would still fail under points 2 and 3.
So this brings up another interesting question. Are contracts going to change after the COVID-19 virus?
I had somebody email me about this just a little bit ago. Well, one, if your contract does not contain strong language around like cancellations, deposits, non-refundable payments. I'm sorry, did we wait for the internet here?
Sorry.
You're good. Yeah, you're good. So in terms of, well, I won't talk about it on a case-by-case basis. If your after this scenario, you should have your contract reviewed by an attorney for sure, and see if there's any way. There you go, and see if there was any way that it could
really
have been.
Bugging out here. Okay.
No, you're good. So, anyways,
right.
Just after this is over. Yeah, I know, Julie. So after this is over, or not after this is over, you should reach out to a lawyer and have them review your contracts. Word to the wise, lawyers are really busy and really tired right now.
Yeah.
So it may be a little bit before you can actually have that happen, but I would get on their calendar to do that. Someone in your state too. I want to be clear about that. Okay, so the second part of that question, I just totally lost my train of thought here, Bronwyn. What was the second part?
So will there be clauses added to contracts? So like, for example, contracts that you had written for Creative Law Shop before this for wedding vendors, will you be adding in a clause that has to do with the pandemic after this? No. Okay.
No, because I already have language in contracts that talk about basic impossibility.
Okay.
Like excused performance, incapacitation, those types of things.
Okay.
We always want our this is where it's hard, but it's also kind of fun to be a contract attorney at times.
Right.
Because we want our language to be broad, because we can never foresee every potential scenario that will arise. But we also obviously want them to be extremely specific at the same time. But to your actual question, Bronwyn, sorry to put
you on the spot too.
No,
I know it's like
you're
about
good.
your actual product, but I'm just very curious
you're not at
for
all.
people that have like purchased contracts and stuff like that, just to ease their anxieties about how strong your contracts are too.
No, it's not not at all a stupid question. And I had somebody earlier to get that. I got an email from somebody who wasn't happy because there wasn't like a COVID-19 provision in the contract.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And here's why I won't put it in the future. Unless new case law comes out from like the Supreme Court or, on a state level, of course. Absolutely. But as it stands right now, it's no different than any other form of incapacitation or impossibility. We've already discussed, I think probably you guys are sick of hearing me talk about force majeure. But even in a force majeure provision, if I wrote it into the contract as qualifying under point number 1 as being a force majeure event recognized by the contract, it would still fail under points 2 and 3 because it would still be foreseeable. It would still be able to be mitigated, and your performance would still not be impossible. Yeah. So I did write a custom contract for someone like the other night, middle of the night. And I did put pandemic, and I did actually specifically state the coronavirus in the force majeure provision just because. But would I ever go to court just hoping that one line would save it? No, never.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Julie, be right back. Going to add active man clause to my future contracts.
We live and we learn.
With the comic relief.
I know. Thank you for that.
Megan, Prater Makeup, do you have advice if the rescheduled date is unavailable for the vendor? Would it be correct to forfeit their retainer? So we talked a little bit about this on Be Driven. Can you just give a little TLDR real quick for Megan?
Yeah, this is going to one, you need to make sure that you signed some sort of termination. It would be a termination agreement with the client. This is going to be entirely dependent upon whether or not your original contract, just the language around whether or not payments are refundable or anything like that. So Megan, this is going to be completely dependent upon the language that you're already bound to.
And if you want to watch the first half of the live on Be Driven, Paige does talk about the type of language that she is looking for in that, but also, again, consulting an attorney is going to be your best bet there.
Definitely. So, I do see a lot of people who come to me with contracts that they've either written themselves or gotten from a friend or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And those payment provisions are not written in a way that could be upheld in court. So truly, I beg you to go, please find an attorney in your state to review that payment language for you.
Definitely. So, e.g. floral design, on point number 2, what if the client still wants to proceed, then the event is canceled, say the day before? Is there a difference if the client decides to cancel or if the government imposes a lockdown?
I think it's still foreseeable. I don't think I would never take on that case. I'll just tell you that. If I'm
sorry, we're all over the place. Okay. Everyone's on live now because everyone's home. So I was eating up all the internet.
They really are. So I'll just tell you, I always say, we need to look at things as a business decision, right? Well, for me, that means I'm looking at it from a litigation perspective because that's my business. So just kind of reverse engineering the way I would view that question, I would never take on that case and say that it's a force majeure event, because the first thing that a lawyer would say would be, well, did you not know on, what is today, March 20th, did you not know that the coronavirus was a pandemic in the United States and that you might have to reschedule the event? It just won't apply under force majeure. Yeah, I don't know if I answered that properly, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think so.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what she was asking. So, and I that deposition way of thinking about it is incredible. You saying what you would ask in a deposition, it's very powerful and enlightening. This is what you're gonna get if you decide to proceed.
And it'll be public record too. Yeah. I've been joking with a client friend of mine that I'll start something, a daily deposition on my
daily deposition.
If you're thinking about this, here'd be the first thing I would ask you on the record.
Deposition of the day by Paige.
The daily depo. So. The daily depo. Whenever I have free time, I'll get around to that.
Right. You have so much free time right now, I'm sure. You're sleeping and not having to do any caffeine.
I'm obviously sleeping so much. Yeah.
No, I was going to ask you what your concealer was, because I'm like, it doesn't look like you've been working. Oh my gosh. You look great for someone who I know has probably got 1 hour of sleep in the last 4 hours.
That's correct. I mean, I'm literally dreaming the contracts right now. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I'm going to just go ahead and throw my husband right under the bus. Before I got on this, he goes, you should probably take a break. You look really, really tired right now. And I was thank you. I'm about to go get on video.
You don't though. You do not. And maybe it's also crappy.
Sit way far away from the camera.
And crappy internet. Works for us in these days.
It does. Yeah. Let's blur it out. That's fine.
So as far as we're getting in some good questions here. Vendors.
Oh yeah.
So from the client perspective, this is an incredibly emotional time. It is, that's my mom. You look great.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
She's the sweetest.
So
from a client perspective, they might be feeling so angry, want to vent, want to write reviews about vendors. And on the flip side, there was a question we got from a vendor specifically. I worry about backlash, libel, and slander on social media if I do go ahead and enforce my contract. So it sounds like she has a solid contract, but she's terrified of what's going to happen if she does enforce that from a PR standpoint and review standpoint.
Yeah, this is obviously for either side. It goes without saying. Sorry, my dog's being annoying. This is a really, really, really hard scenario, and I know that this is emotional, and people react emotionally to emotional scenarios. This actually happened to a really good friend of mine about an hour and a half before we got on this live.
No. Oh, wow. No way. Okay.
So that all being said, you should never forfeit acting and behaving like an actual business owner just due to threats of bullying, especially online. You never should. That's just a really strong opinion that I have.
I agree.
I know that bad reviews can do a lot of harm, or a lot of perceived harm. However, I have seen this handled really well by some business owners in the past, who have responded to those comments. Like, let's say it's a Google review.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's impossible, if not, I think it's actually impossible to get them taken down. I've done a lot of research on this.
Yes, on Google it is. On some others it's not, but Google it is.
Right. Yeah. So Google would be the one you would worry about the most. I've seen people respond to them and be polite. Of course, always lead with that professional, but just say, so and so, I'm so sorry that you feel this way, but you know, I'm not going to tell you exactly how to phrase it, but just say under the terms of our contract, we were unable to provide your services during the national COVID-19. I think anybody else reading that will mitigate a lot of the potential damage that review would hold. At least in my mind, if I'm scrolling through, I'm going to be like, well, yeah, of course. Why would they have wanted to gather all their family and friends during?
Yeah, if I see a bad review on something, and I think a lot of people agree, and it sounds unreasonable, I think it actually helps you as a business owner, depending on your response. If you have an incredible response that is to the point, it's still kind, it's still understanding, it's even offering, hey, if you want to shoot me an email, we can talk about this further privately. But I think it really provides an opportunity for good PR and great customer service. So don't be scared of that, because you're going to be in a way worse scenario, reacting to a lawsuit if you don't, comply with it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, you're a business owner. You sign a contract not because it just is, it sounds like, something you should do, but because that's the right thing to do. So let's stick to the contract. And I think also, as this is where other vendors who are watching this is a chance for us to lean on our network a little bit here. And my friend that I'm talking about, when she texted a group of us and told us that, my response was, okay, we'll wait and see if she posts a bad review, or when she does, and we'll wait a little bit so it's not entirely obvious, but I'm going to cover that up with my own good reviews. Yeah. That's where we can just step in for one another. And that's a really little thing that we can do, but I think that it makes a difference.
Definitely. Well, and especially at this time too, I mean, leaving good reviews for people, not just your friends, people that run an ethical business and you have worked with them before and you have seen them in the field. That is something that you can do to support small businesses if you're not monetarily able to do it right now, because I know a lot of us that own businesses are affected by this. And so, you see these posts, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but you see these posts about how you can help small businesses, and reviews are a big one if you don't have money to be able to support other local businesses with, because you are affected. So that's just another side note there.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel really strongly about that. Obviously, you do too. And that's when it comes to social media, there are a lot of different ways that you can go through their DMCA takedown request as well.
Yes,
and it's worth a shot. It's not going to hurt anything to try.
Definitely. So another note. What about insurance? Does it cover it?
This is a question I won't be able to answer unless I'm looking at somebody's insurance policy.
Okay.
And really, I'm not trying to sidestep a question, but I don't have anything of actual import to say unless I'm looking at somebody's policy. Obviously, you need to be well aware of what insurance you carry and what kind of phrasing it contains.
Right.
Yeah, there are. I have seen some people get creative with some of their business costs in the last, well, I guess, couple of days. I almost said couple of weeks.
Yeah.
In the last, since like literally Wednesday.
Yeah.
With their insurance, there was some language revolving around, or it had to do with like business costs. And because they are now having to work from home, they were getting extra coverage.
Okay.
Because, then define business costs, like, anyways, look at your insurance policy is my point.
And talk to your agent.
So, yes, please. Yeah.
Cool. Don't overload attorneys with those questions,
No,
please.
No. Stay away with those insurance questions.
So these are some more questions for couples. My vendor refuses even a partial refund. What do I do?
Yeah. So again, go back and look at your contract and see if they're entitled to refuse that full, or if they're entitled to retain all funds under the contract. Don't threaten them. Okay. So here, this is negotiation one-on-one.
Okay.
Not one-on-one.
101. We get it. You're lacking on sleep. I'll translate for you if you need. That meant 101. One-on-one means 101.
I know, it's ridiculous, Bronwyn. I'm trying. I'm coming to the finish line. Sorry. Okay, so negotiations 101. If you want something from somebody, don't go at them like full court press and try to bully, intimidate, like fight them for it. So what I mean by this, don't be that person that goes and says, if you don't give me a full refund during this highly emotional time, I'm going to go tell every single person I know about how horrible you run your business, and I'm going to write it all over the internet, and your reputation is going to be tarnished forever. That's the message my friend got an hour and a half ago, like I said. Don't be that person, because I can tell you that person will probably have already reached out to a lawyer, and that lawyer will have probably told them, no, stick to your guns. You can hold on to the money.
Yeah.
So anyways, if you want something from somebody, create a scenario where they're willing to give it to you, or they're willing to work with you. Talk to them, I have an honest conversation with them. And again, I know I'm kind of like, I'm sugarcoating this a little bit, because I know that there are some people right now who are just so emotional about this and so panicked about the financial aspect of this from a vendor perspective that they're not even open to this conversation at all. Mm-hmm. But I still think that it's worth having the conversation and explaining to them that that you're not trying to bankrupt them, you're not trying to bulldoze them, take advantage of them. But you've undergone significant costs for something that now can't happen either. And in order for you to be able to maybe even have a wedding in the future, you have to recoup some of those costs. Something along those lines. And then to this couple that submitted this question, thinking about it it's always good to think about it from your opponent's viewpoint. So thinking about it from the perspective of how I've spoken to a lot of my clients this week. Mm-hmm. I've told my clients flat out, every client's facing losing all of the money that they've been paid for these weddings, right? Yeah. We want to incentivize the bride and the groom to want to rebook my clients for their future event. Mm-hmm. And so you don't want to just retain all of that money and be the jerk and then think that magically they're going to want to work with you again a few months later, because it probably won't happen. Right. So anyways, that's something that you can, to this couple that submitted this question, that's something that you can kind of weave into the conversation. If this is someone that you really want to work with, you can say something along those lines.
And on on a psychological point to that question too, and kind of talking about negotiations, I find that if you take a breath before you kind of pick up the phone and make that call, and you realize that likely a lot of that anger, if you're feeling angry and you're wanting to just attack, likely a lot of that anger is really, it's panic, it's fear, mm-hmm. It's extreme sadness over anything mm-hmm. else. And so if you can tap into that and mm-hmm. you know, while you're explaining it, tap into that emotion rather than the anger that can sometimes result in extreme fear and sadness and loss of control and panic. That's going to work so much easier for you. And if you explain, like, you know, I'm devastated, using words like that, that's so much more helpful than coming at it from like, I'm going to destroy you. Like that's not gonna help at all.
Exactly.
Because it's not anger is the bottom line. The clients that are angry are incredibly upset because it's incredibly upsetting, and they're scared because it's a scary time. We don't know, you know, a lot of what's going to happen when the quarantines are going to end and all of that. So, and that's another thing for vendors to think about too, on their side. If you are getting a client like that, know that it is not you. And I know a lot of seasoned people do know it, but especially if you're newer, you must realize that this is so stressful, and the stress is manifesting into anger. They are not angry at anyone. They're not angry at you. It's just manifesting in that way. So
yeah, exactly.
Another couple question. What is the likelihood of getting my deposit back now if I'm thinking about canceling with a date in July, which is outside the current 8-week guidelines? What are my options?
Yeah. Again, I think, or maybe, we spoke about this a bit in the first part. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So we did. And again, this is, so again, I every time we're talking about a deposit, it's going to depend on your contract. But if you are outside that 8-week timeline, I would go ahead and just reach out to your team of wedding professionals and just start communication with them if they haven't reached out to you first. Right now, honestly, if you are outside that 8-week guideline, I don't know why you would get your deposit back, because it's not like the wedding has been forced to be canceled yet.
Yeah.
Unless you were choosing to cancel it, and of course that's different.
Right.
So anyways, I would reach out to them, just start the conversation. If you've already decided that you want to push the wedding back, then start the conversation around rescheduling. And we talked everyone to death about that and in our last talk. So there's 2 questions from both sides. The first one is, we'll go with the couple. What legal resources are available right now as an engaged couple? Oh, this is a really great question. So honestly, I have not had time to do any sort of outside research whatsoever in the last week. I am not joking. I've been on a call every hour on the hour for about 15 hours a day the last week. Seriously. So I haven't had time to look out like anywhere. So the one I will say, I've seen really good. You all have been putting out really good resources, and Bronwyn, I can't remember what page it was on now, but Cecily put out something last night that was like a rescheduling guide, or not a guide, but a checklist.
Yeah, so there's that word. Yeah, on the non-legal end of it, Cecily who is the director of Spain Ranch. She put out a postponing checklist. It's I'm like literally blanking out. She calls it something, and I can't remember what the thing is. But it's a postponement checklist essentially, and then there are a couple of other resources on there as well. There we go.
Thanks, Cecily.
That changed the date guide. Yes, that's exactly it. And then I believe she's actually working on something that she's going to be putting out by the end of the day today too. So we will have that online, and I think there's a couple of other resources as well, which I'm also like, great. Yeah. But they are on a blog post on Be What Oklahoma under some of the free resources, and then also on Be What Oklahoma is just highlights. I'll save them there as we get them. Yeah. So
I've also sorry to interrupt you. I've also seen go ahead. Think Splendid, the Think Splendid blog, which is written more for wedding professionals rather than clients. But definitely, they would definitely, if I were a wedding, my gosh, Bronwyn, if I were a bride getting married.
We're there right now. This is wild.
Goodness. If I were a bride getting married, it would be helpful for me to read some of her posts. She's just been doing like a daily FAQ type of deal from all different perspectives. So there's the legal perspective, there's like a mental health like type of perspective. Anyways, that's just a great resource. I would look at her blog. Awesome. Yeah, as an engaged couple, those would be really, you all have been putting out most of what I've seen. And again, I haven't had time to look for anything else.
As far as like legal, nothing.
Legally,
Probably.
I have quite a few things on I'm putting out stuff on my website pretty much on a daily basis right now.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, there's just so much to be addressed that I'm trying to do it in as many mass quantities as possible, or to the masses as much as possible. So we have blog posts up about just in general how to handle. Today I'm actually going to be putting one up about how to handle the rescheduling process, like a step-by-step guide. Okay. I'm going to also today, actually right now, my Teresa, who was just on here, has been a superhero and just got this up. We worked with a copywriter and just added free templates on our blog. This isn't necessarily for the couple's perspective, Bronwyn, but okay. We have copywriting templates for those emails that you should be sending to your clients about, just about the coronavirus in general, about rescheduling, about cancellation, what happens if there are threats of litigation, just kind of every aspect. I based it off of a few client scenarios this week and had a copywriter just finesse the language of how I directed clients to respond to questions that came up this week. So that is something that we have right now as well. Yeah, and that's just for free on our site.
That's awesome. And on the vendor side, you have free resources as well. So I was actually looking through a lot of the blog posts. So Paige did a live. It was probably only 2 days ago, thinking back on it now, but it feels like weeks ago. It was only a few days ago, but there's a transcript of like an hour-long live that Paige did that has a lot of the same questions on there for free. And there are several blog posts on there for free. And then as far as templates, she actually has several templates and a bundle of templates, so you can buy them all together. If you are a wedding vendor, is it good for event vendors too, if you're a gala type thing?
Yeah, okay, definitely.
So any event vendor, she has a bundle of those and they're on sale right now, and then I also have an additional code for it. So although I will receive a small commission from it, I have to disclose that. Just a small commission from it. I would not recommend something like, you will not see ads all over my page ever. This is like one of the only things I will ever recommend because I believe in it so hard. Like I said, I'm a doomsday prepper when it comes to businesses. I just don't think that you can mess around with something like that. So it is so important to have a legally sound business for your clients and for yourself. So it serves dual purpose. And I mean, if you're a professional, you need to have it. So
thank you.
So then let's see.
And one thing I will say just about the templates we've added this week, these are templates I had to write for clients like that this week.
Yes.
And so all of them, like we started our first conversation saying, we're kind of talking about two different subgroups of vendors here. We have venues / brick and mortar, and we have service-based providers. And anyways, each of these templates is drafted to suit both. So that was just something I knew that some people have both types of businesses. So when you download it, if you have a venue and you have a service-based business, you don't need duplicates. You can use the same one. So everything that I'm writing for clients, I'm literally redacting, and my team is working pretty much overnight as well and just getting everything listed for everybody.
And as I'm seeing this goes along with it too, as I'm thinking about usability of different types of vendors, as far as this is putting you on the spot as well, as far as being a florist, florists have to order their product. I'm staring at the flowers behind you too, so they're making me
kind
think
of fading a little bit.
No, they're beautiful. It's that filter. It's that grungy, don't have good internet right now filter. It's good. So as far as florists go, there are a lot of wholesalers that are unable to ship right now. What in the world happens as far as if they have a sound contract? What happens?
Yeah, this is florists are in one of the, I think florists and venue owners are in the two most unique scenarios right now, but florists are really in a unique, like truly unique scenario. This is something I started as of yesterday. I started offering like group I call them mastermind calls. It's not like a formal mastermind, but just as a way to respond to all of the inquiries that I was getting, I started hosting them as a group. Anyways, yesterday I had one that had a few florists in the group, and we were talking about it. So I like that somebody it scrolled too quickly, but somebody said, search for local flowers, I think it said. But when it comes to, so we're talking here in the scenario of if florist unable to actually receive the product, but maybe they're still like contractually obligated to perform the service.
So let's say California, who's on a lockdown right now, they're not able to ship out flowers to say, and let's say it is more like a desert, a desert type place. So there's not a lot of local flowers or whatever. I'm not a flower person. Whatever climate does not allow locally grown flowers. If they physically cannot get them, let's play doomsday scenario because that's how I am. What happens if they're still in that contract?
Yeah, that's going to be, there are remedies, like contractual remedies, and impossibility is one. Okay. And that's something, so this is a great point here, letting your client know the situation ahead of time so that you'll have to rely on locally grown flowers. This is one of those scenarios where you might be forced, it sounds like this person would be forced to be in a breach of contract scenario. Wait for the internet. Can you hear me?
We're back. We good? Okay. Yeah, we're good.
There we go. Okay. So this is a time where you might be in what I would call like a forced breach of scenario type of time. Okay. So if I were representing you in court, for example, and trying to defend you, I would try to show every single possible way that you tried to mitigate this risk. So any possible, or not the risk, but any way that you try to mitigate this potential breach of contract. So exactly to the point about searching for alternative flowers, like some flowers are better than no flowers. Right. I know that's like a lot of people probably cringed when I say that. But you know what I mean? From a contractual standpoint,
they already put the
they're like, no.
It's about my dumb comment about I don't know where flowers don't grow. Sorry.
I know.
I'm sorry. I'm a plural idiot. I'm sorry.
I am too. I can really respect what I see, but I don't know like anything about the floral industry. So anyways, I would look for mitigation factors. So different ways that you can try to still provide something for your client so that you're not in total breach. This is where you're really going to be relying very, very, very heavily upon your client communication and just how you're taking care of the client in the process. Luckily, the florists that I've spoken to so far, it sounds like clients are understanding, especially if you explain to the client that, like, for example, if you're trying to ship flowers in from Italy, I know that probably is not an actual scenario for people, but if you're trying to ship flowers in from Italy, the client understands why, exactly. The client understands why you are unable to receive that order. Typically, I mean, you're not going to run into too many people who are like, well, why didn't you just go to Italy and get them? Or, something that, stupid.
Okay.
I don't know if that was a great answer to your question.
No,
I was
definitely
getting distracted and laughing.
And Anthracite is like, they're so creative. They're coming up with all these, and they're like, I'm planting a garden. It's a scenario. Hey, absolutely. I mean, like you said, I think you were the one that said it. It's really showing off the flexibility of entrepreneurs and creative business owners. People coming up with, ways to adapt in this wild time. So I think our last one that we had was just, I see some force majeure verbiage.
Oh yeah, those were just some notes that I had. Let me see. I had some questions at the bottom here. Okay.
Let's see. Concern.
This was just. This was a client who was. This is actually the client that I was talking about earlier, who ended up getting threatened with a lawsuit. And well, I didn't say that part. They ended up canceling the contract, and she's the one that had threats of, the bad reviews and all that stuff. Right. As of yesterday, this person was threatening to file a lawsuit against my friend if she didn't return all of the money, again, because this was such a highly emotional time, contracts don't matter. I wanted to bring up this point. I'm not laughing. I wanted to bring up this point just to be maybe hopefully slightly comforting to people. One, something like that would not be a viable argument in court.
Okay.
The second thing I want people to think of is we need to obviously avoid court at all costs.
Yeah.
If somebody's trying to recoup like a couple $1,000 deposit from you, they're going to have to pay a lawyer probably more than that to get it from you. So I just want to share that as just like, let's take a step back from the emotions of the situation and think about it on a practical level. Again, true colors, when somebody threatens you with something like that, it's horrible and it's terrifying, but that doesn't mean that it's a real scare or a real threat, something to really necessarily think will come into fruition. I just want to share that.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. I think that's good.
Yeah.
For sure. So let's see. Okay.
Yeah. And then
This
I think
is a
we answered that
videographer.
last one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's inevitable that something like this will happen again. As videographers, how can we make sure that for next time our contracts are solid, which we did go over? So what can we learn from this? What can we add into our contracts moving forward? What are things we might not have in their way now we absolutely need to include for the next virus or pandemic? But we already answered that one. So
yeah, I think we did cover that one pretty well. And again, just please, like, if this can teach you anything, please go find an attorney in your state and please have them review not just your contract, but your whole business. Like, if you don't have an LLC right now, then all of your assets are on the line for in any potential judgment. Like,
sorry, we cut out for a second.
No, you're good. Oh no, I was just saying this is the time where it's the same way kind of that people are being like, their attention is just being drawn to force majeure when really they need to be thinking about cancellation or be thinking about their refund, their payment paragraphs, like shiny object syndrome. Okay.
Yes.
So right now this is teaching everybody that they should focus on their contract. And so if you can bear with me here. So the contracts have kind of become that like shiny object syndrome. You need to be looking at your business as a whole and making sure that the entire thing is legal, because even if you have a great contract, if you find yourself in court for any reason, if you don't have a legal structure built up around your business, an LLC separating out that liability, then you're risking everything. Like, you're putting everything on the line unnecessarily. And so just please take a look at your business legality as a whole. Definitely.
Let's see. Anthazai, for Oklahoma florists, there is a great network of flower farmers that I would be happy to talk to anyone about. Okay, I am a flower idiot, but I did know about them. So they are awesome.
I didn't. I'm really dumb about that.
So then we have Ash Frank. This is also one of the last questions that I wanted to ask you, popped into my head as well. So I want to support my clients the best possible way, but would you approach clients that are highly emotional, but also in breach of contract and are refusing to talk about the possible options? And so, compounding that question, there are some clients that I've heard of through friends that they are really emotional right now and they're not even able to talk about it, or there are some that are refusing to talk about it, refusing to answer emails. What do you do from a legal standpoint?
Very gently and kindly remind them that you're trying to help them out, because if they're still under contract, then, if they haven't made all of the payments yet, then their next payment is on the horizon, and you're trying to help prevent them from having to pay that. If that does come up, and you frame it as you're trying to help them help themselves. That's really the best way that I ran into somebody that had that issue this morning.
Okay.
Just remind, money is a really good motivating factor. Again, like handle that conversation very delicately, but just say, listen, we're still under contract. I I'm trying to, I know this is horrifically, unfortunate right now, but I'm trying to help you not be on the line for your next payment that's due on this date. I'm trying to work with you, that kind of stuff. And Ash, you can frame it really well.
Yeah, for sure.
But
and
it's that whole,
Yeah. And knowing you personally, Ash, like you're truly coming at this from like, you want to help your client. So it's going to come off genuine. I think, Paige's advice is definitely solid.
It's just reminding people that again, the contract doesn't go away. So no matter how unfortunate the circumstances, that doesn't mean that the contract went away and they're still under contract.
Definitely. Does anyone, so that concludes all of our questions on here, and we're literally 9 minutes away from being 2 hours into this. And we've had viewers the entire time. So clearly you're helping, and it's been so helpful to couples into the wedding industry. So first I wanted to thank you again. And then I wanted to open it up for anyone watching. If you have any final questions, now is the time. Paige is an incredibly busy person right now. And so we want to take this time and ask a few more questions if you guys have them. And if not, no big deal. While we're waiting for some more questions, such great info. You are awesome, Paige and B. Thanks, Amanda. You're the sweetest. She's the sweetest. And Zai. So helpful. Good. We wanted this to be helpful for everyone.
Definitely.
And again,
one little random. Oh, sorry. Sorry, go ahead. The internet cut out for a second.
Okay, go ahead. You're good now. Okay,
I
think we're good now.
Go ahead. Yeah, it was just really small note. I was just going to mention the live that I did last week that you mentioned. I finally got that thing uploaded onto YouTube, and it's now linked through my blog. Awesome. If you want to find that I had technology was not my friend, and it took a while, but that's there too, and that talks more about just from a vendor perspective, contractual issues that you can avoid, and we spoke about force majeure there too.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome. And so I would highly recommend going to watch that if you've not watched it yet. She talks about some of the same things we talked about today. If you were just joining in on this one on Be Wet Oklahoma, we actually have an entire hour over on Be Driven and on Paige's other Instagram account. So Paige.Hulse and then B.E Driven. We have an entire hour over there, and then we have an entire hour over here that I'll be saving to our story. I will hopefully be screen capturing both of those over the next 2 hours and having those uploaded. But other than that, I think we are good. So I hope you can Christina. Go and get some sleep, and then get some caffeine, and then get some more sleep at some point today. Please schedule some.
We'll see how things go.
Because otherwise, you're gonna have to call a translator, right? You're gonna get
I'll
translator,
you
right?
Saw it there in the last 20 minutes. Lose my ability to form words.
But seriously, like we need you. The community needs you. So don't go and overwork yourself, because
I'll tell you what, this is something I'll just say as I'm looking at an email from somebody right now. This is something that I just want to put out there as a PSA for everybody right now, because we're all in the same scenario. Let's be kind to each other. It's crazy how this brings out a really stressful. This is stressful for everybody. And so if somebody's not able to respond to you right away, or make all of your dreams come true right away, let's just remember that we're still in a network, and that network is still going to exist when this is over with. I just think that's a point that needs to be really
hammered home. Okay. I like it.
I will, Christina, I promise.
And on that note too, we did this live. Paige and I decided to do this live, and Paige decided to take 2 hours out of her jam-packed schedule, because she wanted to ensure that anxieties are calmed on both sides. So we want to express that this is a crappy time, and we feel awful for both couples and vendors. It's horrendous. Cannot even imagine planning a wedding and realizing it's not going to happen. And then on the vendor side, being so devastated and caring about your clients and having to see them go through this and then having to reschedule, having to worry about contracts. So Paige, it has been, I mean, I've heard over and over from everyone in the industry, they don't know what they would do if you were not
Thank you.
here doing this, because you also specialize in creative businesses. So it's like, you know, for a lot of other attorneys, it may be a different animal. They're not used to it. So comforting knowing that there is a source, and that there is a source that is an extension of you, which is Creative Law Shop too, that people can get a hold of if they're not able to get, you know, one-on-one information from you. So I just want to thank you from the community.
I appreciate you saying that.
The work that you're doing is incredible, incredible, incredible. And it's keeping this community together, in my opinion.
Thank you so much. That's like, that really, thank you. I can't say it enough. I really appreciate that.
Yes.
Obviously, I don't have any other words.
Yes,
no,
there's
but
no other words.
I appreciate
it's not
that.
necessary. Save the words. Save the words for the client.
Start using sign language.
Right. Start. Yes, we'll just start doing that. Start just typing on the computer instead. So I will let you go. Please go get some rest. Do something for yourself, whatever it is. So thank you again, and thank you everyone who tuned in and stayed for 2 hours listening. So
and for asking great questions too. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all.
All right.
Hope you're
Good to
staying
talk
safe.
to you, Bronwyn.
Bye.
Bye.